The waterfront burned like a confession. From the Harborview Causeway, the night looked split open flames chewing through brick warehouses while heat warped the skyline into a trembling lie. Sirens braided together. Neighbors stood barefoot in driveways, faces orange in the blaze, filming proof that they were alive when the city wasn't. By sunrise, whispers had hardened into a single name, the way ice decides it's done being water. They chose the kid who fixed laptops and argued like a law professor. Aiden Cole, 19, hoodie, messenger bag, palms etched with faint solder burns that never washed away. Officers lifted him from a 24-hour diner where the pancakes stick to memory and the lights never blink. The arrest report wrote itself. Device near scene, witness saw a hoodie, residue on shoes. That's how it works when fear needs an author and bureaucracy wants a nap. Aiden didn't fight the cuffs. He looked like someone counting exits. The precinct smelled like dust and punished coffee. Detective Carla Barnes slid into the interview booth with a manila folder and a jaw that didn't forgive. Your alibi says 10:40. Warehouse B ignites at 10:47, she said, not asking, already measuring him against a checklist that ruins people who look like possibilities. I biked, Aiden answered. My chain slips. I don't teleport. He kept his voice steady because panic makes fools and truth hates noise. Hawthorne traffic cam shows me at 10:52. The diner cam has me pay at 10:43. Pull them or pretend you prefer rumors. Barnes watched him like he'd turned the room sideways. Somewhere beyond the glass, a printer wheezed out a charge sheet that didn't bother with commas. You've done this before, she said, not a compliment. I repair systems, he said, and sometimes they don't like meeting the person who noticed where the wires cross. Karen Cole arrived just after dawn, coat damp from harbor mist, hair pinned back with the efficiency of a deadline. Not a lawyer, worse. A paralegal who remembered case law like lyrics and walked like corridors owed her apologies. At the desk she recited the sacrament. Bail hearing, preservation order, duplicate all body cam footage now, dispatch your CAD logs from 10:30 to 11:30, first in engine radio. If it disappears later, assume I will not. The sergeant lifted one brow. Are you counsel? I'm his mother, Karen said. Counsel studies procedure. Mothers invented it. She found Aiden behind the glass. They pressed palms to their separate worlds. Breathe, she mouthed. He did. She turned, collected forms, and left a paper trail thick enough to make the future trip. Harborview District Court filled like rumor contractors in soot-smudged cuffs. Teens who ride longboards under nitrogen monoxide skateboarding signs. Baristas with clattering bracelets. Judge Eleanor Whitaker presided with the patience of a storm cloud that prefers lightning to lectures. Lucas Miller arranged exhibits like silverware, practiced, confident, already tasting victory. The state will show the defendant's device geolocated near the scene. A witness places him at the west door. Accelerant residue was found on his shoes, Miller said. Whitaker's eyes found Aiden. Do you understand the charges? Yes, Your Honor. He glanced at the overworked public defender juggling 3 lives and a migraine. With leave, I'll handle preliminary cross and evidentiary objections pro se. I'll retain counsel for trial. This isn't TikTok, Whitaker said, dry as chalk. If you grandstand, I revoke. I don't perform, Aiden answered. I verify. The gallery, unsure if it was allowed to breathe, did, anyway. The pier guard named Tag Ray testified about a hoodie and the smell of fuel, about a bike chain rattling like guilt. Aiden's cross was soft, the way rain convinces roofs to confess. How many hoodies? How many bikes? How many nights smell like diesel by a working harbor? He slid a printed still from the gate camera, zoomed the office window. Reflection shows handlebars drop style. Mine's a flat bar hybrid with chipped grips. Rear light in a V pattern, that's a courier rig. My light died last week. Ray squinted. The grain surrendered 2 stabbing LEDs. Miller objected to speculation dressed as geometry. Whitaker half smiled and overruled the tone, not the math. Truth, when it's tired of being chased, sometimes turns around and walks toward you. Miller pivoted to cell site records. Hawthorne at 10:45. Seagate at 10:49. Proximity, he said, like a period. Outages cause handoffs, Aiden answered. Seagate blinked at 10:41. Every phone clung to Hawthorne's microcell like anxious children. Telecom logs can confirm or we can pretend radio waves join the DA's union. Whitaker tilted her head, a hawk noticing movement. Mr. Miller? We'll check, Miller said, unfamiliar with retreat, reaching for the lab. The tech spoke, medium-range distillate on shoes, gasoline. Aiden held up the saws. I worked repairs next to a demolition cruise generator. My shoes have been marinating in Harborview Godey Unvented since Saturday. If we're doing science, give me chain of custody, swab times, controls. If we're doing TV, I'd like better lighting. He added a baggie, tiny metallic flecks from his laces. Solder, not ash. Test it. Captain Howard, first in, mapped heat patterns with sentences built on smoke and certainty. 3 near-simultaneous origin points, V patterns along the north eaves. Standpipe valves locked when they should have begged to be opened. Captain, Aiden asked, how long would an amateur need to set 3 points 70 feet apart? Howard exhaled like a man who refuses to lie for convenience. Longer than 7 minutes. Between my receipt at 10:43 and the alarm at 10:47, I'd have to bike a mile, breach 2 chains, and pour fuel in triplicate under watched eaves. That's physics. Unless we're alleging teleportation. I fight fires, Howard said, eyes on the judge. I don't write stories. The gallery learned the difference between smoke and narrative, and it didn't like what it knew. The dock worker changed his mind 3 times, moving Aiden's phantom from door to ramp to fence, like a magician hiding a card he never had. Sir, Aiden asked gently, what did they promise if you remembered me? And what did they promise to take if you didn't? Objection. Sustained. Still, the question sat in the room, refusing to leave. Aiden produced an Instagram story captured by at Night Only Yay, the waterfront at 10:42, captioned Free Light Show, worst soundtrack. Frame 3 a courier bike flashes past with a shark tooth reflective sticker and that same V-pattern rear light. Recognize the rig? He asked Captain Howard. North Pier Express, Howard said. They make enemies nightly and deliveries sometimes. And who authorizes after-hours dock access? Aiden asked. Security, Howard said. Or management. That second word changed temperature as it crossed the room. Keypad logs arrived sweating. Someone had used a credential labeled TEMPOPS 78 20 minutes before ignition. Names? None. The page that should have matched IDs to codes happened to be missing, the way pages learn to develop legs near trouble. Whitaker ordered it found. Fuel variance reports aggressively labeled evaporation, as if physics were on retainer, showed shrink that insulted arithmetic. Aiden requested the city's antique intersection cams that Harborview only loved during parades. Grain by grain, the timeline reassembled. The Shark-Tooth Courier running lights from Seagate to North Pier, pausing in blind spots with the confidence of someone told which cameras were on lunch. By day's end, Miller's tie learned humility. "Your Honor, this remains a bail hearing," he said, voice thinner. "And also," Whitaker replied, "a literacy test for our relationship with facts." Karen found an envelope under her windshield wiper at dusk. "Call if you want your son safe." The number belonged to a voice calling itself Frank, like a character in a script that tries too hard. "Plead to trespass," he suggested. "Fine, community service, everybody sleeps." "You came to the wrong house," Karen said, placing the phone on speaker so her son could hear the shape of a threat. "You'll make enemies," Frank warned. "We keep a drawer for them," Aiden said, ending the call. "Some knights choose their heroes, others accept a volunteer." Traffic cams gave up a secret. A white crossover idling at the precise angle to catch. In the manager's window, a handshake and reflection. Grain surrendered a face operations chief. Graham Lowell smiling at a helmeted courier. One frame later, fire-eating perspective. "Why wasn't this disclosed?" Whitaker asked. "We didn't have it," Miller said, which was true the way people lose car keys in the coat they're wearing. Lowell took the stand wrapped in corporate composure. Aiden advanced through questions like chess, refusing checks he didn't need. "Who held Tempo PS 78? "Temporary staff rotate," Lowell said, shrug first language. "Couriers made 3 late runs before each prior small fire. Not in your in-gate register." "Through walls?" Aiden asked. "Objection. Overruled," Whitaker said. The word management cooled another degree. North Pier Express delivered a witness with a public defender and a conscience finally out of excuses. Evan Cross, 26, hands whirring an invisible hat. "It wasn't some kid with a match," he said. "It was inventory fraud dressed like bad luck. We moved product off books to a shell yard. Fires reset counts, cash in envelopes, access code on a sticky note. White crossover by the office window. Sometimes a uniform unlocked a gate so cameras would have someone official to watch." "Name the uniform," Whitaker said. "Not loud, not optional." "Sergeant Miles Hewitt," Cross swallowed. "He called in noise complaints to pull patrol away." The gallery inhaled like a choir reaching the wrong note together. Barnes closed her eyes and opened them different. Internal Affairs entered with suits that didn't smile. Telecom logs confirmed the outage handoffs. The fire marshal amended origin by 12 feet, closer to an obligingly propped loading door. Miller stood, professional enough to pivot. The state moves to dismiss charges against Mr. Cole without prejudice, pending investigation into fraud and misconduct. "Granted," Whitaker said. She looked at Aiden, then at Karen, then at a city drafted as a jury by accident. No one clapped. Relief is too private for applause. Outside, microphones swarmed. "How did you win?" "Will you sue?" "What's next?" "I didn't win," Aiden said. Evidence remembered what it was for. Barnes approached, hands pocketed, apology rearranging her face. "You weren't my story," she said. "Write me out," he answered. "Write the right names in." They rented a narrow storefront on Hawthorne between a barber shop and a thrift store that smelled like the past. No sign at first, just a bell on the door that learned to ring for people told to be quiet too long. They called it Bee-Sheen because anything else felt like a dare to the dark. A superintendent with fistfuls of illegal entry notices left with an injunction template and case law pressed into his palm like a saint medal. A line cook with a shattered wrist left with an internal affairs complaint that remembered nouns. A delivery driver with a predatory tow bill left with a map of cameras and a script that starts, "For my safety, I'm recording." Karen kept files alphabetized by threat level. Aiden kept a wall-sized flowchart titled, "Where the Process Will Betray You," and drew new arrows when fresh betrayals introduced themselves. Barnes visited with coffee and questions. "You sure you don't want a badge?" She'd ask. "Badges are social contracts," Aiden said. "I prefer contracts that don't expire." Harborview performed accountability like a play city council hearings. Righteous speeches, budget groans. Sergeant Hewitt resigned 1 hour before the discipline letter landed. Graham Lowell pled to fraud and obstruction and discovered community service looks different when you used to sign performance bonuses. North Pier Express sold to a competitor that prided itself on fewer subpoenas and better stickers. Judge Whitaker began insisting on disclosure deadlines like curfews in lightning season. Ada Miller learned to say, "We were wrong," without swallowing his pride whole. Barnes led a task force on staged losses and brought Beacon in as civilian consultants, which meant everything and nothing, depending who was listening. Some nights Aiden still biked the causeway. The harbor stopped looking like a mouth and learned to be a mirror. He'd pass Warehouse B's rebuilt facade and ignore the plaque. He doesn't collect trophies, only routes. Beacon's bell rings more now. Some days the room is shoulder to shoulder with people the world misfiled under problem. Some days it's empty except for dust performing their slow ballet. On those days, Aiden writes guides. How to ask for what they say you can't have. When nitrogen monoxide camera means hit record, say the date out loud into your phone. He teaches folks to keep receipts like talismans. Barnes arrives with folders marked stupid but dangerous. Karen offers tea and precedent. Sometimes a kid stands at the door 5 minutes before entering because hope is heavier than fear when you're not used to carrying it. Sometimes Aiden watches the street, counting the seconds between sirens and silence, and feels both like a responsibility. Justice isn't a place. It's a route you redraw every time someone moves the signposts. The waterfront learned that. The court did too. And when people ask Aiden why he keeps doing this, why he refuses deals, why he makes enemies, why he maps shadows he could ignore, he answers what he told the judge on day one, what he says to himself when the room empties and the bell stops. I don't perform. I verify. This wasn't just Aiden's fight. It was a reminder of how fragile justice becomes when shortcuts are easier than truth. For him, the evidence spoke loudly enough to save his life. But what about those who never get the chance to be heard? The system doesn't always see clearly, and next time, it might not be Aiden. It might be someone you know. So if this story made you stop and think, share it. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Black Act for more stories that matter. Stories that hold up a mirror to justice, to prejudice, and to the choices that define us all.